So Prince William reportedly went completely, unnervingly silent when the damning photographs finally hit his polished desk. And if you know absolutely anything about how the palace machinery actually works, you know that a dead silence from the air is way, way louder than any screaming match echoing down a corridor. The explosive story coming out of Windsor right now involves exactly 6 illicit images, 1 heavy gold-embossed invitation, 42 highly influential VIP names, and a tiny, completely unauthorized royal crest sitting directly, arrogantly, above Laura Lopes's name. Laura Lopes, for anyone who needs the quick refresher, is Queen Camilla's daughter from her first marriage to Andrew Parker Bowles. And apparently, someone highly placed in her orbit decided to blatantly defy a direct, written order from the palace, slap a protected crown on a private commercial invitation, and brazenly try to hijack the monarchy's immense visual power to elevate a family art reception. Before we get into the weeds on these details, if you enjoy deep dives into royal protocol and behind-the-scenes breakdowns of palace power struggles, hit subscribe to my channel so you never miss the next update. Now let's talk about the forbidden gold crown. To truly understand why this specific detail turned into such a massive structural panic inside the palace walls, we have to rewind the timeline about 36 hours. A formal email went out from the palace administration shortly after 7 in the morning. The tone was professional, almost painfully polite, but the core message itself was absolutely not open to any interpretation. Laura Lopes had been planning a supposedly private art reception, and the palace firmly laid down the law. The event could not take place inside the historic East Terrace rooms at Windsor Castle. Furthermore, no royal insignia could appear on any invitations, no press photographers were permitted, and absolutely no commercial sponsors could be attached. The instruction was final. It was not a polite suggestion. It was not an opening for negotiation. It was just final. Laura's office received the email, and the palace servers logged a definitive read receipt confirming it had been opened and presumably read. But nobody replied. That silence alone was a massive red flag, and irritation started bubbling rapidly among the senior royal aides. But what happened next escalated that bureaucratic irritation into a full-blown constitutional crisis. About 24 hours later, 2 large delivery vans boldly rolled up to a restricted service entrance at Windsor Castle. They were heavily loaded, carrying professional lighting rigs, expensive champagne walls, giant, elaborate floral arrangements, and hundreds of high-end branded gift bags. Crucially, they also lacked the necessary, pre-approved visitor authorization, but the paperwork attached to these specific vans deliberately described the massive cargo as a private family delivery for the Queen. That single, powerful phrase changed all the normal security rules. The intimidated staff waved the first vehicle right through the heavy iron gates, while the second driver was stopped purely on a fluke because one of the heavy cardboard boxes accidentally split open during transit. Inside that broken box were dozens of expensive invitations, printed on thick, premium cream cardstock with raised lettering and gleaming, thick gold edges. And resting prominently, directly above Laura Lopes's printed name, was a royal crown, the very symbol she had been explicitly, legally banned from using. So that's where the narrative gets incredibly weird. Why would someone print wildly expensive invitations featuring a protected royal symbol immediately after receiving a strict written order prohibiting them from doing so? That alarming question landed squarely on Prince William's desk at 8:17 the following morning. But there was a significantly darker detail hiding in the file. The original approved design for this invitation had been submitted and cleared weeks earlier. It was elegant, private, and completely harmless. There was no crown, no official palace wording, and absolutely no visual suggestion that the British monarchy officially supported or sponsored the event. The royal symbol had been added later, highly deliberately, after the final warning was explicitly sent. Prince William stared at the 2 wildly different versions side by side. He then noticed 4 extra words printed beneath Laura's name on the new version, "By gracious royal permission." There was just one massive, undeniable problem. No such permission existed. Not from Prince William, not from the powerful Lord Chamberlain's office, and certainly not from the King's private secretary. Yet 42 highly influential guests had been confidently told otherwise. These were wealthy art patrons, powerful gallery owners, and former government ministers, people whose names command instant respect and open doors in London society. This was clearly no longer a casual, private family gathering. It looked highly official and deeply endorsed by the Crown. Prince William immediately gave the unyielding order to stop the event in its tracks. That should have been the end of the drama. It wasn't. Laura Lopes was already physically inside Windsor Castle. She had smoothly slipped in through a private, less monitored family access point just before 9 in the morning, carrying a thick blue folder. She was flanked by 3 individuals who were absolutely not on the approved palace security list. A senior staff member nervously intercepted her in a restricted, quiet corridor and respectfully explained that the evening's reception had been formally canceled. Laura didn't argue, she didn't shout, and she didn't cause a messy public scene. She simply opened her thick blue folder, pulled out a single crisp sheet of paper, looked the senior staff member dead in the eye, and calmly stated, "I have authority to continue." The staff member read the paper, and his expression changed dramatically. He immediately stepped aside and let her pass. Wait, what authority? That frantic question raced through Windsor Castle faster than any official memo ever could. Within minutes, senior aides' phones were ringing off the hook as they desperately tried to determine exactly who had signed that specific piece of paper. Nobody immediately recognized the signature, but the typed formal instruction at the bottom was crystal clear. Please provide Mrs. Lopes with all reasonable assistance. Crucially, it appeared to originate directly from the Queen's household, not the King's. To the general public, that minor administrative distinction seems utterly insignificant. But inside the highly structured palace, it's a ticking time bomb. Queen Camilla has her own dedicated staff, her own favored charities, and her own busy schedule. Still, her distinct household fundamentally cannot override a direct, explicit instruction issued in the King's name, especially not inside a fortified royal stronghold like Windsor Castle. Prince William was absolutely furious. He barked an order that the mysterious document be brought directly to his office immediately, but it never arrived. Someone had smoothly removed it from Laura's blue folder before castle security could even manage to make a quick photocopy. So now the problem had massively escalated. A direct order wasn't just ignored. Crucial, physical evidence had mysteriously vanished from the premises. Prince William immediately stopped treating this incident as a messy family misunderstanding and went into full lockdown security mode. He aggressively demanded all access logs, all security camera feeds, formal written staff statements, and printed copies of every single email remotely related to the event. Then he issued his most aggressive, unyielding demand yet. Absolutely nobody was to warn Queen Camilla, but she found out anyway. Of course she did. By 10:30 in the morning, the Queen had completely scrapped her private morning schedule and was in a chauffeured car speeding aggressively toward Windsor. Prince William was curtly informed that she wanted a family conversation. He sent back a remarkably cold, one-line reply. This is no longer a family matter. That chilling message reached Camilla's car before she even arrived at the castle gates. She arrived brimming with palpable rage, but notably not about the art reception being unceremoniously shut down. She was absolutely livid that palace security staff had dared to interrogate her daughter. "My daughter is not a criminal," Camilla reportedly snapped the moment she entered the tense room. Prince William's response was icy and immediate. Then she should have no difficulty explaining the missing document. Camilla stubbornly stood her ground, firmly insisting there was no hidden, secret document. Prince William remained completely unfazed. He slowly slid a signed formal security statement across the highly polished table. A veteran, trusted staff member had clearly seen it. 2 junior assistants had openly discussed it. Laura had literally used it to bypass a highly restricted security checkpoint, and now, conveniently, it was gone. Camilla read the damning statement twice before delivering a line that instantly shifted Prince William's deep suspicion into outright, blazing fury. "Perhaps your staff," she suggested, emphasizing the word. "Not palace staff, not the king's staff. Your staff." Prince William caught the subtle, malicious distinction immediately. He leaned forward, closing the distance, and said with deadly calm, "These people serve the crown." Camilla locked eyes with him and responded with three simple, chilling words. "For now, yes." That was all it took. The temperature in the room dropped drastically, feeling almost freezing. This was clearly no longer a petty squabble about champagne glasses or a private family art show. It had suddenly become a shadow war over which ultimate authority would prevail in the looming next reign. Then, Prince William discovered something truly alarming buried on Laura's meticulously curated guest list. A high-powered, London-based property lawyer's name had been added by hand at the very bottom. He immediately wondered why a specialized property lawyer would be attending a private casual art reception. He circled the name in thick red ink and requested a rapid, comprehensive background check. Within 20 minutes, the detailed results were sitting on his desk. The lawyer focused exclusively on complex trusts, massive charitable foundations, and selling high-value private collections. That specific detail instantly made the art hanging on the walls infinitely more important than the VIP guest list. Prince William entered the East Terrace room just as the bewildered workers were slowly taking down the temporary display walls. Laura Lopes was standing near the grand fireplace, speaking quietly with a nervous event organizer. On a draped table behind her were 12 beautifully framed artworks. They were undeniably beautiful and incredibly valuable, but crucially, they were not on the official, pre-approved event list. Prince William methodically checked each small display label. 11 of the paintings belonged to wealthy, private lenders. The 12th painting had no lender's name attached, just three simple words, Private Royal Collection. That label absolutely should not have been there. The Royal Collection is not a personal, casual collection. You cannot simply borrow a priceless masterpiece for a casual evening event. Items are incredibly carefully logged, handled exclusively with white gloves, insured for tens of millions of pounds, and move only with suffocatingly tight security protocols. This particular stunning painting wasn't even formally authorized for any movement. So, the glaring question remained, how did it get securely inside the castle? Laura defensively claimed she didn't know. The panicked organizers said it arrived securely hidden among official, sealed deliveries destined for the Queen. The Queen's household adamantly denied sending it. Three wildly conflicting answers, and absolutely none of them added up to a coherent truth. Prince William then astutely noticed a small, unassuming paper tag taped securely on the back of the ornate frame. It wasn't a standard museum catalog tag. It was a formal valuation tag. Someone was not just proudly showing this painting, they were actively figuring out its exact market value. At that precise moment, Prince William lost his calm, but instead of shouting or causing a scene, he acted decisively and ruthlessly. He ordered absolutely every heavy door locked. No one could leave the room, use their mobile phones, move any files, or discard any stray papers until they definitively determined who truly owned the painting. Laura looked genuinely stunned. "You can't keep people here at a family event," she protested. Prince William slowly surveyed the grand room. This stopped being a family event as soon as someone put the crown on the invitation. Then Laura played her desperate final card. She stared defiantly at Prince William and boldly claimed the painting no longer belonged to the royal collection. She stated it had been given privately to her mother. It was a gift. Prince William coldly asked who gave it to her mother. Laura paused, and that tiny, agonizing hesitation told him the devastating answer long before she actually spoke the words. King Charles. The entire power dynamic in the room violently shifted. If King Charles had genuinely legally gifted a priceless painting to Queen Camilla, then Laura had absolutely every legal right to display it. If he hadn't, someone was actively exploiting the king's name to hijack millions in protected royal property. There was only one definitive way to uncover the absolute truth. Charles needed to be brought directly into the room. Camilla was visibly desperate to avoid his involvement. She frantically argued that the king had more than enough stress and dismissively characterized the picture as trivial. She angrily accused Prince William of turning a simple, sweet family courtesy into a major constitutional crisis. Prince William completely ignored her and dispatched a highly secure private message urgently requesting Charles's immediate presence. Then something truly bizarre happened. Camilla suddenly fell deathly silent. She shot a sharp, panicked glance at Laura, who slowly, agonizingly turned her head toward the thick blue folder resting on a nearby table, the exact same blue folder that had supposedly held the missing authorization document. Prince William noticed their silent exchange. He didn't ask for permission. He walked swiftly over, aggressively grabbed the folder, and unceremoniously dumped its contents across the polished table. Guest biographies, expensive catering invoices, detailed seating plans, and comprehensive insurance documents spilled out everywhere. Still no authorization paper. Then, a heavy, folded document slipped out from a cleverly hidden inner lining. It wasn't the single, crisp sheet the staff member had read earlier. It was something vastly more substantial, a sprawling, detailed draft proposal. The bold, arrogant title printed across the top read, "The Queen's Family Cultural Initiative." Read those words again carefully. This was absolutely not about one small, harmless exhibition or casually borrowing a room in Windsor. It was an entire, massive initiative. The dense proposal outlined a massive recurring program of private, high-end cultural events to be hosted exclusively at royal residences, prominently involving Camilla's civilian relatives, highly selected corporate sponsors, and billionaire art patrons. Laura's Windsor reception was explicitly, proudly listed as the official launch. The launch that palace security mistakenly thought was merely a quiet family art show. The launch that had been formally, explicitly ordered to stop. And yet, it aggressively continued. Now, Prince William deeply understood the true purpose of the tiny gold crown on the expensive invitation. It wasn't just decorative flair, it was highly intentional branding. Someone was meticulously building an unofficial, highly lucrative royal operation running completely parallel to the official one. A second, hidden door into the heart of the monarchy. This rogue operation would completely bypass Prince William and become virtually impossible to shut down once billionaires and highly influential politicians became emotionally and financially invested in it. King Charles arrived shortly after midday with absolutely no fanfare. He walked in carrying a battered, iconic red dispatch box, took one sweeping look at the scattered documents covering the table, then glanced sharply at the priceless masterpiece leaning against the wall. His expression completely fell. He recognized the painting instantly. When Prince William pointedly asked whether he had legally gifted it to Queen Camilla, Charles answered with one devastatingly clear word, "No." Laura whipped her head toward her mother in shock. Camilla remained stony silent, her jaw tightly clenched. Charles sternly insisted on seeing the hidden valuation label and angrily asked who had unauthorized moved the picture. The room fell deafeningly silent. He slowly opened his red box and revealed a signed, highly confidential instruction dated exactly 3 weeks earlier. The painting in question, along with several other highly valuable royal assets, was legally designated to be placed immediately in a secure family trust. The absolute only beneficiaries of this specific trust were Prince William's 3 children, George, Charlotte, and Louis. This was exactly why the specialized property lawyer was on the guest list. This was exactly why the valuation tag was secretly attached. This was exactly why the event desperately needed to happen immediately, before the complex trust documents were finalized. If the picture appeared publicly under Camilla's explicit control, even for one single night, it could change everything. Photos and testimonies from wealthy, credible guests could strongly support the legal argument that Camilla already treated it as her private, gifted property. It wouldn't definitively prove ownership, but it would create massive doubt, enough doubt for clever lawyers to aggressively exploit and delay the trust for years. Prince William turned sharply to Laura. Did you know? Laura stammered nervously that she was firmly told the artwork legally belonged to her mother. When he forcefully pressed her for the source of that information, she looked down at the floor and wouldn't answer. Charles didn't need her to speak. He slowly turned to look directly at his wife. The room fell into an agonizing silence. In a surprising, desperate twist, Camilla vehemently denied any secret, malicious transfer of wealth. She stood remarkably firm, loudly claiming Charles promised her the picture years ago in absolute private, without the interference of lawyers. Charles stared at her blankly, as if trying to recall a casual, fleeting conversation that had suddenly, horrifyingly become a massive legal issue. Then Camilla reached deep into her designer bag and pulled out an old, slightly yellowed piece of heavy paper covered in Charles's distinct handwriting. It was a simple, affectionate birthday message, but at the very bottom, he had carelessly written one incredibly damaging sentence. "One day, the little landscape will be yours." There it was, a tangible promise in writing. But was it a legally binding gift? That single sentence sparked a fierce, immediate debate. Camilla fervently believed it constituted legal ownership. Charles weakly thought it was just a romantic sign of deep affection. Laura genuinely believed the matter was legally, permanently settled. Prince William saw the incredibly harsh truth. A casual, romantic promise was being aggressively used to take a highly valuable asset directly from a trust meant exclusively for his children. The entire narrative violently shifted. The situation instantly became a high-stakes legal battle to determine whether Charles's emotional, written words could legally override his formal, binding legal documents. Charles gently took the delicate note from Camilla's trembling hand and placed it directly next to the official, signed Trust Instruction. He called the bewildered property lawyer forward to weigh in. The lawyer's answer was incredibly harsh and exceptionally clear. The birthday message undeniably showed good intentions, but it changed absolutely nothing legally. The officially signed trust document did. The painting legally belonged in a trust, and the unauthorized event had absolutely no legal right to showcase it as Camilla's personal property. But Prince William was absolutely not done. He still demanded to know exactly who printed the fake authorization document after the event was formally canceled. He forcefully insisted they find the missing piece of paper. Charles Weary ordered the comprehensive search. Palace staff meticulously searched every room, checked every secure printer log, and painstakingly restored deleted emails. At 2:46 in the afternoon, a frightened junior aide discovered the definitive source. The fraudulent authorization came directly from Camilla's private office, but Camilla hadn't actually signed it, neither had Laura. The bold signature belonged to one of Camilla's most trusted, highly senior advisors. Prince William ordered her to be brought in immediately. She walked in remarkably confidently, carrying absolutely no notes, and didn't flinch under the intense scrutiny. She calmly confessed to drafting the sprawling proposal, using the restricted royal symbol on the luxury invitations, and directly instructing delivery vans to use the Queen's highly secure designation. Her shocking explanation left absolutely everyone in the room utterly speechless, even Camilla herself. The advisor steadfastly claimed her rogue actions were meant exclusively to protect Camilla. She firmly believed Prince William's household was systematically creating a deep, permanent division between the official royals and Camilla's blended family. She was deeply scared about the uncertain future. She saw Laura's initiative as a brilliant way to secure a permanent, unshakable place for Camilla's family in high society long before Prince William eventually became king. She didn't want flashy titles or public money. She desperately wanted permanent access, deep influence, and a highly respected position firmly entrenched within the royal system. She genuinely thought she was bravely defending her queen, but she had ruthlessly used Laura as an unwitting pawn. This was the ultimate, devastating betrayal. Laura didn't maliciously set out to steal royal property. She was heavily manipulated. She was repeatedly told the event was fully approved and proudly given a document signed by a highly trusted senior figure. She was confidently assured the artwork legally fully belonged to her mother. When the first strict cancellation email arrived, Laura chose to completely ignore it. She didn't attempt to verify anything. She willfully ignored all the glaring warning signs because the glittering false reality she was presented with was exactly what she desperately wanted to believe. Prince William was not furious because Laura was Camilla's daughter. He was absolutely furious because her name had been cynically used to bypass strict security, move priceless, protected items, silence terrified staff, and brazenly turn personal wishes into binding royal commands. Charles dismissed the rogue, overly ambitious advisor immediately. He ordered the shredding of the fancy gold-edged invitations. The event was officially permanently canceled, and the artwork was highly secured and immediately returned to a reinforced vault. Camilla, feeling deeply, profoundly humiliated, angrily demanded a formal public apology for how aggressively Laura had been treated throughout the ordeal. Prince William flatly refused. Charles desperately tried to calm the escalating situation, but his efforts only made it significantly worse. Camilla pointed an accusing finger directly at Prince William and loudly accused him of intentionally humiliating her family simply to assert his dominant alpha status before he even became king. Prince William remained remarkably calm and coldly replied that he was fiercely protecting the throne specifically because Charles had repeatedly failed to set necessary boundaries. No one spoke a single word after that. The silence was incredibly heavy, almost suffocating. Even Prince William seemed momentarily shocked by the harshness of what he had just said to his father. Charles slowly closed his eyes, visibly feeling the crushing weight of the accusation. Because deep below the shouting and chaos, Prince William was undeniably right. Charles had spent long, exhausting years trying to peacefully merge two very different families. He desperately wanted peace, but he never made it explicitly clear where personal affection ended and rigid royal authority began. Now, one vague, romantic birthday promise had nearly pulled his young grandchildren into a messy, public property conflict. One overzealous rogue advisor had acted wildly without proper authority. One civilian daughter had willfully ignored a strict security order because she believed family access was infinitely more important than ancient palace rules. Charles wanted lasting peace, but he created absolute chaos instead. The final devastating blow didn't happen until long after Laura Lopes had been quietly escorted off the grounds. Prince William picked up the controversial guest list one last time. There were exactly 42 names. 41 were officially invited to the reception, but one specific name was added by hand at the very last minute. Prince William stared intently at the ink. The handwriting wasn't Laura's. It wasn't Camilla's. It definitely wasn't from the recently fired advisor. Charles looked down at the paper and recognized the distinct handwriting right away. He had added that name himself, weeks earlier. He added it before the strict cancellation email was sent, before anyone secretly, fraudulently changed the invitations, and long before anyone claimed they knew absolutely nothing about the massive plan. Prince William slowly looked up at Charles, and the heavy feeling of deep betrayal was thick in the air. Charles sank deeply into his chair. The king had known about the ambitious reception plan from the very beginning. He had even gently suggested seeking legal advice to Camilla, but when the grand proposal became entirely too controversial, he cowardly backed away. He passively let the palace staff shut it down without ever admitting his own deep involvement. Charles never directly told anyone to take the painting, but by cowardly staying silent, he allowed others to dangerously assume what he wanted and act decisively on it. Camilla felt deeply betrayed by her husband's silence. Laura felt falsely empowered by the palace machinery. Prince William felt the crown itself was under direct, imminent threat. All three reacted strongly to a massive leadership gap that Charles had stubbornly refused to fill. Prince William didn't shout. He quietly picked up the annotated guest list, walked slowly over to Charles, and placed it gently in front of him. "You could have stopped this." Charles didn't attempt to defend himself. He didn't offer a denial. He simply looked sadly at the empty space on the wall where the painting had hung just hours earlier. He saw the torn gold invitations resting in the bin. Finally, he reached slowly into his tailored jacket for a heavy, expensive fountain pen. He pulled the sprawling proposal toward him and drew a thick, black, definitive line completely through the words, "The Queen's Family Cultural Initiative." His hand shook a little as he slowly wrote a new, ironclad rule for the royal family directly on the page. No private family member acts with royal authority. He signed his name with absolute finality. Camilla quietly read the sentence. Laura's name wasn't explicitly written there, but absolutely everyone in the room deeply knew it was meant specifically for her. Prince William quietly gathered his papers, turned around, and walked purposefully to the heavy wooden doors. Behind him, Charles sat completely alone at the large table, surrounded by a romantic birthday note that promised entirely too much, a strict security order that arrived entirely too late, and the torn remnants of a gold invitation that should never have existed. Powerful, binding signatures surrounded the king, yet he sat broken in the wreckage of the clear words he never had the courage to say. So, tell me this. Did Prince William act purely to protect the British monarchy from a highly serious structural issue, or did he cynically take advantage of a messy family problem to keep Camilla's family completely out of the palace for good?